All right, back again. I just want to say thank you. I've had so many more people reach out recently, just saying that they've been listening to the solo episodes and getting some value out of them. And I'm really glad. I use this almost as a log of my thoughts, a way of producing content because I'm not really good at putting content out there. And the intention is always to give value or for people to find value in it. And I'm really glad that it's actually serving its purpose. So thank you, everyone, for reaching out or talking to me in person and asking questions about things that I've said or saying that you listen. I really appreciate it. I love you all, and thank you for listening. Anyway, today I want to talk about, on a positive spin, I get a lot of questions in like my Q&As or when I've done historically, Zero Q&As for podcasts on the main Zero podcast or anything like that. I tend to get a lot of negatively geared questions, as in questions that are along the lines of trying to bait into the common debates that are out there, or trying to lean into things that I might have said that I'm not necessarily a big fan of in powerlifting, like SBD days or frequency things. A lot of questions about like how to deal with haters or how to deal with this particular situation in a gym and yada, yada, yada. And sometimes it feels like we talk a lot about the negative things that happen in powerlifting, and I feel like we don't talk enough about the really positive things that happen in powerlifting. And so I've been involved in powerlifting, I guess you could say, from age 16. So this year would be 20 years. I turn 36 pretty soon. But really, I've been involved since I was 18. So I was interested in powerlifting from age 16, but I wasn't really doing powerlifting until age 18. And so in my almost 20 years of experience in the powerlifting world, I've had an overwhelmingly positive experience, which is why I'm still in it. Like, a lot of people leave because they get salty and leave, or leave for various other reasons. I've made my entire life centralized around the sport of powerlifting because I love it and I love everything that it's done for me. And so I just wrote a list of a few things that that really stand out across my many years in powerlifting as some of my favorite positive things. So there's a little bit of backstory behind them all, and that ties into a little bit of like my history in powerlifting, I guess. So hopefully you find this interesting. Point number one, this actually comes from a little while ago. I was going back and forth with someone who had run a competition, and they were like, we originally were going to give medals in weight classes, but we didn't end up doing that. We gave medals overall. And there was a 16-year-old kid that competed and emailed after that was basically like, I thought it was in weight classes, and if it was in weight classes, I would have won my weight class, so I would have got a medal, and I'd really love to have a medal for my performance at this competition. And, we can enter the debate of participation awards versus this and that and all the rest of it. What I hear is a kid that has fallen in love with powerlifting, or is in the process of falling in love with powerlifting, and an opportunity for that meet director or that federation to give back to this person. And what it made me reflect on for my answer, which was like, give the kid the medal, I think that's cool, is my first ever PA comp. So at my first ever PA comp, I just signed up for a comp and I just rocked up. I didn't know that you had to wear a suit. Back then, there was no such thing as Raw. So the minimum requirement was, of course, a soft suit or a singlet. Most people were wearing equipped gear. So I just rocked up in shorts and T-shirt. And the guy's like, where's your suit? And I'm like, what do you mean? What's a suit? It's like, you have to wear a suit. And it's a sanctioned powerlifting competition. And I'm like, I don't have one. And he's like, I just compete anyway. So this person had the grace to not turn away a kid who had paid the money. Back then you had to like fax away your information, and then you received a little card with your face, your picture on it, a little like driver's license almost. That was my PA membership. So, you had to produce your card, and gone through all that effort, faxed away my form, got my card, and I'd showed up to this comp, and the guy could have just said, piss off, you didn't even read the rule book. What are you doing here? But instead he was like, no, jump in the comp, have a go. So I jumped in the comp. I did okay. No, I didn't do okay. I did terribly compared to how strong I am now. I'd wipe the floor with that kid. But no, I got my first 2 squats, but on bench press, so I did my first bench press and I didn't wait for any of the calls. So I missed my first bench press, which was 100 kilos. And then I went up to 110 and I tried to push it and it just didn't come up. And then I tried 110 again and it still didn't come up. So technically I bombed on bench, but they were gracious enough to just give me white lights on one of the bench, as in like I bombed on bench, but in the system, and it's recorded on Open Powerlifting, you can go look at it. In the system, it's recorded as a good lift. So I ended up getting a total. I showed up, I bombed on bench. I didn't have a soft suit, but they still gave me a total and they still awarded me a medal. And I can't even remember back then if it was a weight class thing or not, or if they just gave me a medal because they felt sorry for me. My memory of the day was I had a really fucking good time and I fell in love with powerlifting. And that little kid, I was 18, that kid fell in love with powerlifting and has now contributed to powerlifting in a decent way, especially in Australia. So we have these opportunities to help people out. And I had that experience, and it's really paved the way for me to pay it forward in the sport of powerlifting. I've always loved helping out people at competitions because I know what it's like personally to show up to a comp and have no idea what the hell you're in for, no idea what the hell you're doing, no idea how it works. Like your first time comp, no one tells you about the warm-up room and how it all works and that everyone's going to be sharing equipment and yada, yada, yada. You just go and you kind of figure it out. And if there's no lifters briefing or anything like that, you're just a bit lost. And so people out there that take these lifters under their wings in a non-shady way of trying to poach clients or whatever, they're just genuinely out there to help, you guys make the world go round. My next really positive thing. So I started in PA. I think only one of my meets is actually recorded on Open Powerlifting, even though I did several. But I started in PA and I took a hiatus from powerlifting because at the time I was still competing in BMX and I still really loved that. I took a bad hit to the head and kind of decided, well, I'm going to stick to powerlifting. So I found powerlifting again and I did it through what was then PTC Brisbane. And back in the day, it was run by Scott Wasson. So my next number 2 is just Scott Wasson and PTC in general. So like I started getting back into powerlifting. I was on the AusBB forums, like the Aus Bodybuilding forums, the powerlifting section, and people were talking about PTC. I found out about PTC Brisbane. I was watching all of their videos religiously on YouTube every time they posted one. Because back then, there weren't many people doing strength training and powerlifting in regular gyms. So you very rarely saw someone even doing a squat to depth or doing a deadlift. It was quite rare. Like at my commercial gym at the time, I asked the owner of the gym to buy a squat rack, like a squat cage, because they used one of those half racks which has fixed safeties. And for me to hit depth, I would hit the safeties. So I'd have to walk out like 2.5 meters to be able to squat to depth. And it was just getting a bit ridiculous. And the guy went out and bought one for me. And then they had those old school Hampton bumper plates. They're like steel through the middle, like a regular steel plate, but with the bumper outer, I guess you could say. They sold all of them and brought in like the Hammertone rubber coated handled weights, but the 20s are less than 45 centimeters. So they're less diameter than a standard comp plate. And I was like, I can't deadlift on these. These are like doing a deficit all the time. Can I keep some of these plates that you're selling so I can deadlift? The owner let me do that. Like that was fucking cool. And yeah, at my gym, I was the only strong guy. I was the only one doing squats. And if other people were doing squats, they're doing quarter squats, and no one was squatting over like 140. So I was routinely squatting 180, 200. I was the strong kid at my gym, and I was the only one doing deadlifts. So it was really cool to be following PTC and other people on those AusBB forums. Ben Polk back then was posting a lot, seeing his stuff and seeing people in America on the bodybuilding.com forums, powerlifting section was the only real exposure you had to powerlifting training. We didn't have Instagram and Facebook. We could only had people with logs who, if they were rich enough to go buy a camcorder and then had the time to then digitally upload it, which took forever, then edit it in like Microsoft Movie Maker and then upload it to YouTube on shitty internet back then, you could watch a video. And so it was cool watching Scott Wasson and the PTC guys because they were the only strong people that were local. All the other people I was watching was in America. And finally, I got the opportunity to go train there. I did my first non-PA comp there. I did the first ever Buster Nut competition at PTC Brisbane. And Scott and the whole PTC crew were just always so gracious and warm and welcoming and friendly. They taught me how to wrap knees. I saw everyone putting these wraps on their knees. They saw me do mine and they're like, what are you doing, man? So they showed me how to wrap my knees. I could use really cool equipment like a deadlift bar. It was unheard of back then. Access to these things was far and few between. And so that really paved my way then into like, this is a super cool gym. I want something like this. And that influence was what led me to choose to open a PTC Gold Coast in the first place. So I wanted to have something like Scott had created with PTC Brisbane. And that was my inspiration to, when I decided to open a gym, go the PTC way rather than doing it independently. That's actually why we're on the Gold Coast. I didn't want to open down here. I lived in Brisbane. I wanted to open local to my area, but because he was in Brisbane, the agreement at the time said you had to be 100 kilometers or an hour away from the nearest PTC. So I had to come down here. And beyond Scott's influence of just how he ran and operated his gym, the guy was just really prolific in powerlifting back then. He was vocal, but logical, and he set the model for like working hard and running great competitions. I'm not saying everything he did was perfect. Like nothing that anybody does is ever perfect. But he provided a really workable model and provided many lessons to learn from. And I'm just so gracious that I had that exposure early on and had people like that to look up to when I was coming up as a gym owner and a meet director and everything like that. So Scott Wasson and the PTC, mainly PTC Brisbane, but PTC as a whole, because Marcus was always very gracious to me, and so were the other PTC owners as well. Next is community in general. So the broader powerlifting community is generally really cool. When I write community here, I guess I'm more talking about like my gym community, as in like the members of my gym coming together. Like it's always so cool to see everyone come together for events and celebrations and everything like that. But what really stands out to me is, I feel emotional just saying this sort of stuff, is the way that people are willing to give back to what we've created here. Like the way that people will step up and volunteer their weekends time after time after time to just load plates on a bar at a competition all day for 2 days, 3 days straight for our big comps. Like the way the community bands together is awesome. It's literally what makes my world go around. I love it. And so there's a couple of things that really stand out to me that I'm going to try and talk about without breaking down. And this one's hard. This one really strikes an emotional chord for me. So in 2015, I had just moved the gym to a new location, to its second location, which was a big jump for me. I went from making a little bit of coin, like enough money to live off, to essentially just breaking even with the move to the new location. So I took a risk. I went to a bigger location in a better location and bought a whole bunch of equipment to go with it, and essentially drained my accounts to zero, and my income reduced drastically because of the fact that the expenses now were much higher. So I took the risk. I took on another government job at the time. So I was working at the gym, but I was also working during the day for my old career. And anyway, long story short, the Nationals was coming up, and every year before that, or the few years before that, I'd put together team shirts. We'd made a 2014 Nationals team shirt, and everyone was excited for us to put together and buy their team shirts and everything. And I was like, guys, I literally don't have the money. Even when you pay for it, if you pay for it now, I don't have the money to front the cost of the shirts. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do the shirts this year. It was just too scary of an expense to play around with, and too big a task mentally for me at the time to wrangle up the cash to do it, even if people eventually paid it off. So I just made the decision, we're not going to do this. And I think it was about a week before the comp, Matty Bro, so Matty Tapaya, who does all the artwork at the ZeroW gyms and all the world gyms around Australia, if you've seen that, or if you're following Matty Bro on Instagram, you should, because he's awesome. He's been on this podcast as well. He wrangled up the troops, basically, spoke to the community of my gym and he's an artist. He did the design for the t-shirt. He went away. He got them printed. He got me a cute little one with Coach on the back, and we had team shirts. And it's literally one of the most heartwarming community-based stories I can think of in my time of running the gyms. Like, if I think of a way the community has banded together, for me, that's the standout moment. And yeah, it's just so fucking cool how we can have this third place, this gym, and anyone who's in one of these gyms or owns one of these gyms knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's different. When we say it's family, it really is family. It's very different. Another great example of the community banding together is just the COVID thing. You know, the COVID thing could have really, or did really mess up a lot of gyms, and we were lucky enough to have the community here where people without prompting were messaging, offering to pay even more than their standard membership if we were in trouble. People were doing things like, hey, I'm going to keep my membership going. Even if you want to pause it, I won't accept that. We gave out all the equipment. We essentially gave it all out. We didn't charge people for it. People just kept their memberships going. And we emptied the gym, including the floor. There was like literally nothing left here besides the stuff that couldn't physically be moved, like the cable stations. And yeah, I mean, like, this gym survived through COVID, through being completely shut down and limited government assistance. And we had just opened Southside. We opened Southside 4 weeks before the lockdowns. And both gyms survived, and it's all because of the community that we had built, banding together. My next thing is the opportunity for upskilling. So I'm a big believer in mentoring. Like, there's very limited courses that are going to help you be a better powerlifting coach besides the Zero Coach Development course, of course. So a lot of my knowledge and upskilling has come between, trial and error. I'm one of the more prolific coaches in the sense of I've coached a lot of people, probably more than most people have coached in powerlifting. So there's the practice aspect, but my coaching has been refined by talking to people much smarter than me and being able to bounce ideas and say, hey, I think is this fucking dumb? Can you tell me I'm being stupid? Or can you tell me if I'm on the right track, with people much smarter than me? And I've spoken about who I've been mentored by before, and I'm just like, the grace that these people have extended towards me as an up-and-comer and offered to help me at no cost. I've paid very little for a lot of the mentoring that I've received, or I've tried to pay and people have refused. And I'm not saying that anyone's going to give you help for free, but if you know how to make the right ask and you're in the position to do so, you should do that thing. Because I wouldn't be who I am, and I wouldn't be the coach I am. I wouldn't have built the brand I have without receiving help along the way. I don't believe in the term self-made. Self-made makes sense in the term that you might have not paid someone to help you get there, but nobody's self-made. You need other people at every level around the corner. Like, you're never truly self-made. If you're using technology, you're not self-made. If you've asked someone a question about what you should do, if you've listened to a book, you're not self-made. And so I'm definitely not self-made, and I have a long list of people to thank. But some of the names that come to mind, Jordan Shallow has always been so gracious about lending me his time to ask sometimes very annoying questions, and has always been extremely helpful. And watching his journey has been inspirational and pivotal to me continuing to push, especially on the business side of things. Pat Davidson we had him on our Peak Speak podcast, and after that I had a bunch more questions, and it turned into these calls we would do, and I would throw in things and he would throw things back, and it was just great conversation that he would do when he was clearly busy. Like, he would be doing stuff while we're chatting, but he was still willing to take the call of someone that had met once and just like entertain it. And we go back and forth from time to time, and I'm always extremely grateful for that. Ed Cohen, everyone knows Ed Cohen is a legend of the sport of powerlifting, and most people also know his reputation as just being extremely helpful and extremely humble and kind. He's just an all-round great human being. And like, I remember the first time he came out to Australia, I think it was Nationals 2014. like this is the absolute legend, the pinnacle of our sport at the time, and will be for forever. I think no one's going to forget what Ed Cohen was capable of doing, or what Ed Cohen did to change the course of powerlifting. So you've got this living legend, and people say never meet your heroes. I hope if you idolize powerlifting or you love powerlifting that you get to meet Ed Cohen, because he's the perfect example of exactly the hero you should meet. Broderick Chavez, obviously Evil Genius Sports Performance, the gear guy. Broderick has always been extremely helpful with educating, and not even just on the performance enhancing drugs side of things. Whenever I've had questions around that, or wondered about what's happening in that world, or he's just an extremely knowledgeable guy. Of course, he's quirky, but for some reason we've gelled quite well, and he's always been extremely giving of his time and information as well. Chad Wesley Smith, I went and hung out at his house for a week many years ago, like, I don't know, 10 years ago or something now. Really, really changed the way that I viewed programming back then. I was pretty lost with programming. Like, I'd come from the era of Shaco and Mad Cows 5x5 and 531 and West Side and all the rest of it, Smolov, just every dumb programming. And a lot of our programming back then was just a mishmash of all these old methods that didn't have much science behind it. And he got together with Mike Israetel, wrote the Scientific Principles of Strength Training, and really changed how a lot of us viewed programming back then. And I was able to pick his brain nonstop for a week and ask him a bunch of annoying questions. And same thing, like, he was kind enough to, we had rapport, it wasn't just a random letting a stranger in his house, but he was kind enough to let me stay at his house and train with him and ask a bunch of questions. And it was just cool, really cool. Same could be said for Mike Israetel. He came and did a workshop out at our gym many years ago, and we ferried him around and took him out to lunch, and just very open with information and willing to share and willing to educate. And last on the list is Mike T. While we haven't necessarily collaborated just yet, I just went on his podcast last night, and Mike T has always been so liberal about putting information out there and educating the powerlifting world. And he's just such a cool, inquisitive, deep thinker on all things training, which is really, really cool, because I feel a little bit the same. I probably don't nerd out quite as hard as he does, but I love the deep thinking aspect. I really love asking the question why, or being willing to look at things from all angles to formulate an opinion, rather than just falling on your sword no matter what you believe. So I'm really appreciative of him, and have had many conversations with him, albeit short, but yeah. And coming back to the community thing, this is powerlifting community thing as a whole. Just this one's the last one, and just a quick one on how cool the powerlifting community can be. We do quite a bit of, I guess you could call it, philanthropic work. We give a lot through ZeroW that we don't publish, because what's the point? We're not doing it for clout. We're doing it to help. And so since 2015, we've done a lot of stuff in the Pacific Islands, because I love Pacific Island powerlifting. I have a huge heart for it. I've coached the national PNG team, the national Fijian team. I've been to the Pacific Islands, several nations, and I've seen powerlifting in several nations. And the Nauruans come over here and do our comps. I just love Pacific Island powerlifting, and the conditions that people lift in places like Fiji or Samoa or PNG, less than ideal, compared to the standards we have somewhere in like Australia. And so access to equipment, access to lifting equipment, personal equipment is all very sparse. Way back when, we did a big drive to send belts, sausage sleeves, everything, powerlifting equipment to the islands. And it was huge. We got so much stuff, like tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment that we collated and sent off to the islands. And it was just an incredible showing of how the powerlifting community was willing to do something, willing to put in to help other people. Like several companies at the time. One company sent us a whole pallet of belts and soft suits and sleeves. Never used, just like brand new. And yeah, I mean, it's just incredible to see. And I love the powerlifting community, and that's what this podcast was all about. So hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you at the next one. Bye.